Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking a few minutes to come and talk about SharePoint 2013. My name is Jeff DeVerter. I work with Rackspace Hosting here in San Antonio, Texas. And we are going to just get in and play around with some SharePoint today. Well, there's me, and it says my title is SharePoint Evangelist. Some people will call it SharePoint Janitor, but I don't want to be too pompous with titles. So I have been running around Rackspace for quite a while. I came over to Rackspace to help us build out our SharePoint offering, and over time this has grown up quite nicely. And this is the second, or it's actually the third version now as it comes in that Rackspace will have fully supported and help to manage. But today we look at the agenda. One primary goal, actually it's two, and the first is to get out of PowerPoint as fast as possible. You didn't come here to look at slides, you came here to play around with SharePoint. And so that's what we're going to do. To that end, just as a reminder, this application, SharePoint 2013, is still in beta, and even stuff that I find working at one moment won't the next. So that's my little disclaimer. Now today we are going to do what a lot of companies do over time, and that is go from doing their day-to-day collaborative type stuff in and around a file share and move into SharePoint. So we're going to take that as our metaphor for the day and move that stuff, not all of it, we'd only have a little while today, we're only going to be here for a few hours, just kidding, it won't be that long, and move it into SharePoint, some stuff in its native construct and some stuff more in the context of SharePoint. And using it in that fashion will give us the chance to show you some of the changes, both large and small, in SharePoint 2013. And now we're going to do this today around the fictitious company of the famous Acme scooters manufacturing. And they've had a corporate file share for as long as they've had a company. And it's broken up like a lot of companies do. They've broken it up by kind of executive divisions of the company. So we've got an executive leadership group, there's a finance group, human resources, IT, legal, product, and sales. And if we were to look through some of this stuff like human resources, you'd find that there are some graphics that are approved, there's lists about people and policies and purchasing. There's an org chart. If we were to go in and look at this org chart and allow our lovely blocked content, we can see what this organization looks like and understand who reports to who in the traditional fashion, and then ultimately, though, move this stuff into SharePoint. Now let's go ahead and look at SharePoint. I'm going to go ahead and bring up this page, and I've started with the most basics of pages, and that is a team site. And this is what a team site looks like inside of SharePoint. And a few things to point out here. First is a lot of this is the same, but a lot has changed. So if we were to look at the title of our site, we would see that it is called the Acme Scooters, and we've got a little section here giving us some text. Now the ability to edit and manage text on a page from 2007 to 2010 got a lot easier. Well, that story just continues to get better in SharePoint 2013. You'll notice on the left-hand side we've got some corporate branding. You'll notice that we have a little bit of quick launch going on over here as well. We're going to spend some time working on that. Now you notice our site, our basic site, already has the Acme Scooter logo. Let's go ahead and see how we got that logo placed over there. Now before we had site settings and we had site actions, and now we have this little gear wheel. And the gear wheel is where we're going to get down into our site settings. We'll look at some of these other elements of this page a little bit later on. So if we go into site settings, you'll notice that we have a similar link to before, and that's the title, description, and logo. We go into there, you'll notice that the logo is already there. Let's look at how we would update that by either getting a new logo from a computer or from another SharePoint location. What I'm going to do is just show how we would use this by going into a computer, browsing to it, and finding that logo inside of Human Resources, inside our approved corporate graphics. We would find the main logo for Acme Scooters. And just click OK. Takes us back out of it. Click OK to save that change, and head back to the main page. It, like in previous versions, is clickable to take us back to the main page. Now you'll notice that we have a little text here welcoming us in. If we were to edit this page, by simply clicking the Edit button in the upper right-hand corner, you'd notice that we have the ability now to click into this area and ultimately be able to start typing. See? Start typing. But as we do that, if I were to click on Page, you'd notice that we will pick up ultimately an enhanced version or enhanced capabilities of what is the ribbon. Now, if all this text was gone, and we were typing this from scratch, we would type in "Welcome to Acme Scooters, the place for all things intranet." You'll see that it's coming in just a nice basic text, and without any formatting. I have the ability, just like any of the other Office applications, to highlight that, come down and change my font style. I can come through and change its size. I can do bold and all that sort of thing, or use corporate approved stylings. For instance, if we wanted this to be in heading 1, we could do that. And that operates just the same way as you would find inside of Word. In fact, let's go break out some Word here if I could type. And if we were to put our text into Word, you'd find that while the heading has a different style, it is still, or around it is still using the heading 1 style, just like we would use inside of Word. All right, let's minimize that. Go back to SharePoint, and to do some basic styling on this, I'm going to put the secondary heading a little bit below it and give it a different style. I want to take this and place it below the or above the documents, so we'll just drag that around. I can actually drag it. There we go. And when we're done doing that, save and close. Nice and easy to update this stuff. Now, let's take a look at some other changes to the interface. One of my things that I find that I really appreciate about the new version of SharePoint is the consistency from in and around all of the Office applications. For instance, let's go back to Word for just a moment. And I'm going to show you a new button. It's up here in the upper right-hand kind, and it shows full screen mode. And if I were to use full screen mode, I get rid of all the extra styling that's going on around it, and I can just work on my document. You'll find that throughout all of the Office client experience. You'll also find it here inside of the SharePoint experience. Here's that button again, and it allows us to just focus on the content that we're working on. In this context, we've removed what we would affectionately know as the Quick Launch bar over on the left-hand side of the page. Now, that Quick Launch bar has some enhanced capabilities. What I think Microsoft has done a very good job of here in and around this newest version of SharePoint is bringing the things that you need to do closer to the surface so that you can actually do them without having to surf through a series of menus. Now, you can still surf through and find them down in some of the usual areas and the usual suspects, but a lot of it has come back up to the top. For instance, if I wanted to add a link to this left-hand side, well, then all I have to do is click Edit and then add a new link. For instance, I think it would be great if everybody knew how to get to my blog, which is the Social Point blog, and its address is here, /social-point.com, and just click OK and save those changes. And all of a sudden, now that's over there, part of our left-hand navigation. All right. Excellent. Now, I didn't actually mention this in the beginning. I'll bring it up now. If you have any questions, let's get them into the chat window. I'm going to probably not focus much on that as I go through a lot of this presentation, so I'll be taking those questions towards the end of the broadcast. All right. So back over to our file share. I want to go back up to the root of it, and we can see that we've broken our organization down into individual file areas. But what we want to do is take this file folder metaphor and turn it into a sites metaphor. So at the root of this environment, we have our intranet site, corporate intranet site, and we're just going to create our department sites beneath this. So the first one we need to create will be one for this executive leadership group. And to aid in doing this in real time, I'm just going to copy and paste a little text along the way so that you don't have to watch me mistype a lot of stuff. Now, one thing you'll notice on the gear drop-down is the lack of ability to create a new site. But what we want to do, first of all, is come in and look at where it says View Site Content. Context. And so inside of here, you'll see some changes in this contents. So the first is, up at the top, it says Lists, Libraries, and Other Apps. You're going to see this app metaphor, this app concept being drawn all the way through your whole new Windows experience, all the way from Windows 8 down into the Office client and now into the Office server as well. In fact, a lot of the thoughts around what we have and we consider it as lists and libraries, Microsoft is now starting to even term as apps. But inside of here, as we think about site contents, we'll also have the ability to create the new subsite. So I'm going to go ahead and create that. The title for this is going to be the Executive Leadership. We're just going to call it Execs for its URL. You'll notice that this page is very similar to previous pages in and around SharePoint. We can look at permissions for this site. We can look at how the navigation works. I'm just going to take defaults for the time being and click Create. You'll notice several times on the right-hand side of the page a little icon that says Working on it. No longer do we see just the Gears of War green spinning icon as SharePoint works. There's a more kindler and gentler feel to SharePoint now. And so it's working on it while it's busy in the background churning data. Now this is what a team site looks like when it's first created. Microsoft has done a very nice job in giving us this little getting started with your new site application and the ability to give this site some custom stuff. We're not going to spend a lot of time inside of here because I'm going to take you down a pretty scripted road on what I want to show you. But know that as I remove this by clicking the icon on the screen, that getting started is always available as we get in this nice handy-dandy pop-up, is always available to us at the bottom of the little gear in the upper right-hand section. That getting started, again, is just going to bring that back to the site. So back in our executive leadership site, you'll notice that we're given a very generic icon here. That's one of the first pieces that we want to style so that we understand where we are within our site. That's going to be done in the traditional site settings area, just like we talked about earlier. It's kindly working on it for us while it spins in the background. We're going to go to the title, description, and icon. We're going to grab that logo from the computer. We're going to grab the icon for the senior leadership team and click OK. And once that has loaded, we will click OK. And it works on it, it saves it, and it updates it. Now we have that branded for our site. Now, before we move on, though, to start creating some of our other sites, let's look a little bit about how this individual site itself could be customized from a look and feel perspective. So inside of here, we have the button for Change the Look. I'm going to go in and click it. And what you're going to see are a bunch of predefined templates that have come with SharePoint at this point in its evolution. And what I'm going to do is select one of those. Let's go grab Sea Monster. It looks offensive enough. And of course, it's working on it. Now, we don't have to just take it at face value. Microsoft has spent a lot of time and effort in changing the way branding happens in and around SharePoint. I am no branding expert. I just know how to click and point on these pages. If you haven't had the chance to review what Randy Driscoll presented earlier in the week, those webinars will be made available, and I'd encourage you to take a look at that. So the first change that we can make is change the color scheme that's been presented to us. Maybe something a little, not quite so nasty, a little more, whatever it is. And it gives us the ability to even change the layout, and we even have the ability to change what would have been that background picture. I'm going to click on that picture and browse through, and just even go grab the default Acme Scooters logo. It's going to look pretty gross in the background, but it gives you the impression of what we have the ability to do in styling a page. Without the use, of course, of any unique tooling at this point, we're just using stuff right out of the box. We can even change the default font set if we were so inclined. Now, we're not completely set here. We don't have to just click Go. We can, as they say, try it out. So I'm going to click that button, and it's going to take these customizations, and it's going to apply them to the site, give us the ability to look at it. and review our changes. And from here, we can choose that it's not quite there yet, or yes, keep it. This goes to enforce the kindler, gentler SharePoint that is coming to us to hopefully help with some of the user adoption challenges and issues that we have had with SharePoint in the past. There are a lot less techie words. There are a lot more happier words. So not the prettiest thing in the world, but I'm going to just go ahead and just say keep this, and we will keep it. And let's go back to their home page, take a look at how this looks, and see that it's really quite funky. But we'll leave it. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn back on our ability to, there's that button, there we go. Turn on that quick launch bar, hopefully, here in just a second. Come on now. No, doesn't want to do it for us. All right, so let's go now back up then to our parent page, because as we go back and look at the file folders, we know that we now need to create a finance site. And you can see that we're starting to also build out a menuing system across the top. And we aren't going to make any major changes to that. Just know that there's a lot of flexibility there as well, even connecting that to manage metadata to drive it. So we'll go into View All Site Content. We're going to create a new subsite. You'll notice we are shown immediately that we have that new Executive Leadership site beneath this. And we're going to call this Finance. We will give it its URL of Finance and click Create. Now we'll just we'll lighten up on some of these customizations just because you don't need to see me typing all this stuff through, and we want to get this structure in place and start to show you how some of this stuff actually starts to work together. But I do want to do the light branding, at least the logo on the upper left-hand side, so that we can keep an eye on where we are as we move through this demo. So we'll go to the computer, we will go to the file system, we will grab it from Finance and click OK. And we will save this change, which of course we scroll to the bottom to do, and know that that change is made. We go back to the root of our finance site and see that now we can see our finance site. But one thing that I do want to do is I want to create in the quick launch bar our ability to get back to the home site. So I'm going to add a new link in this site that's going to say, we'll just call it Intranet. And I've copy and pasted the URL. I copy and pasted the URL incorrectly. Now it's right. And click OK. Now save that change, and you'll see that there's a link to the intranet site from the quick launch bar. There are a lot of ways we could do that. We could surface it through the master page. In this case, in the context of what we are working on, I found that to be the easiest way today. So now we have executive leadership and finance. All right, let's just grab a few more of these to help us get this whole thing, this whole environment created for us to work with. Let's get an HR site created. To paste that into there. We will give it a URL of just HR, click Create. We will add the individual logo for this site as well. View site settings, and again, title, description, and logo. The next time we do this for the next site, we'll actually do a little tooling around the site settings area and show you some of the things that have changed inside of there. There are a lot of enhancements to SharePoint. Sometimes they are doing that in the context of new wording for old things or actual new content. So we'll take a look at some of that stuff. Intranet, and paste in that URL, save that change, and now go to the intranet. Now some of this, as I go through these different sites, you will note is relatively repetitive. But what hopefully you are starting to realize is the SharePoint environment is using a lot of the same metaphors, a lot of the same ease of use that we are used to seeing in a lot of other applications. There will be some things to also point out along the way, like the fact that I am doing this work inside of a Firefox browser right now. In fact, I'll be using multiple browsers to be able to take on multiple personas here shortly. Because the way that Microsoft is tracking those end users is you can't just log out and log in the same browser window anymore. They're actually tracking it with cookies and those sorts of things. So let's remove that little icon from the site. Let's go ahead and add the unique site logo. We are in IT now, so we'll go grab this from the computer and select IT. Okay, great. And OK. So again, the beauties of some of this stuff is not lots of training. In fact, not a lot of surfing around inside of the hang on a sec, surfing around inside of SharePoint menus, but really being able to do a lot of this in the context of where you are inside of SharePoint. Internet and paste. And OK. All right, that's enough of those for now, I think. So let's go back to the home page. And we'll do that by clicking Intranet, back to the main intranet site, and take a look at what we have here. But let's go into the Human Resources page, or folder inside of here, and notice, of course, we do have some more subdirectories inside of here. For HR, probably, let's just do one more. We're going to go into HR. We're going to create a subsite that would ultimately be able to manage all of these corporate approved graphics. In this site, we would want to give the entire organization the ability to have read access to that content, because if we're going to put all of our corporate approved graphics in this area, then we want to make sure that those graphics have the ability and the permissions to render inside of the destination wherever they're used. So we'll create this subsite. We're going to call it corporate approved graphics, and I'm just going to call this graphics, and create it. I'm not going to do the branding on the page because I think you've seen enough of that. But I do want to get this getting started off of our main page. And now we need to get some documents into here, right? So traditionally, how do we do that? I want to get those corporate approved graphics into this document library. Old days, we're going to click New Document. We are going to click Browse. We're going to individually select one. We'll click OK or Open and ultimately bring it in, and then repeat that for as many of those items as we have. But in this newer version, kinder, gentler version of SharePoint, what we have the ability to do, which is just makes life so much easier in so many different ways, is to get in, select the documents we want, drag them to our window, let go, and watch them upload. Woo, there it goes. All that stuff has now been uploaded into SharePoint. Dragged them and dropped them. Now, let's be fair here. I can't come down here to corporate approved graphics and drag the folder and bring it over. It's going to say, hey, wait a minute, unsupported file types can't not be uploaded. So we still have, I don't know if any of this is going to change from that this current beta version I'm running to the end version, the release version, but now we're starting to feel kind of techie words there, but let's go ahead and just delete that notification. All right, now that we have some information in here, some documents in here, let's take a look at what the document library in SharePoint 2013 looks like. Well, it looks pretty clean. Let's start with that. We have the ability to search directly for a file inside of here. And we have a little asterisk, green asterisk, sort of in a snowflake that tells us that this is a new item. And we know when it was updated, about a minute ago. How's that for a kinder, gentler SharePoint? It's not giving us exact dates and times that we have to figure out and do the math in our head. It's going to give it to us a little easier. In fact, as we move through the demo and move back in and around some of these areas, you'll see these increasing to 6 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, as opposed to us, again, looking at a numeric representation of the date and time and doing the math in our head. All right, but there's a lot missing from what we have seen in the past. Where's the drop down? How do I get to my data? Well, we have the little, 3-dot ellipse over here, and if I click on that, I'm given a preview of what this document is. I can see when it was updated. It's shared with, lots of people. We're going to find out what that means as in lots of people. And by the way, that's that kinder, gentler SharePoint. It's shared. No longer have we, quote, granted permissions. We've shared it. Isn't that nice? Here's its exact logo. If we needed to copy and paste that and use that elsewhere, we have the ability, if this was a Word-based document, to edit from here. We can share it with more people. We can follow this document, follow it. Think of following as just as if you were in the Facebooks or the Twitters and you were going to follow an individual or follow a page or like a page. This is your ability to keep track of what's going on with this document over time. You can see how that's consumed a little later on. And then we have a further ellipse down here. And that gives us some of the things we're used to seeing. Viewing and editing properties, checking it out. Compliance details. Ooh, lots of good new stuff in the compliance world. Some workflow stuff, getting a copy of it, sharing it with someone else, or even deleting it right from here. So let's look what happens when we click on Share. Now, inside of SharePoint, in this environment, in my demo environment, I've built this fictitious organization. And if I wanted to share this with, let's say, the sales manager, that sales manager's name is Martin Thomas. So if I start typing Martin, you'll notice that down below we are given all of the results. But if we go back to where it's just an M, you'll see that there's also somebody here called Angie Williams. She has an M in her name, so she comes up. And we can just select the person we want. We give them the rights that they have. And again, look at how we're changing some of these names. It's now not just view only, edit, contributor. Who knows what contributor means? So really, that's edit or just view. So let's let Mr. Thomas have the ability to edit. And click Share, and off it goes. And you can see up here, I get a little toaster pop up in the upper right-hand corner that tells me that I have shared that document with Martin Thomas. All right, let's go put a few more documents into our SharePoint environment. Let's go on Home, and let's just make our way back up to the root site, and go on down into our Information Technology area. Let's go back to our folder and look at Information Technology and see what's going on in here. Now we have more subsites. So first of all, there's a charter for our IT group. That sounds like a document that really needs to exist over here. Woo! Now there's a charter. And look at this. You tired of reading these updates? Just dismiss them. That's so nice. But we do have a project management office that has a whole lot of documents located inside of it. Let's go ahead and create a subsite for our PMO group. View all site contents, and then we will select new subsite. And from new subsite, we will type in project management office and PMO, and create. Again, I'm not really taking any unique new templates to show you here yet. We're using all the usual suspects. Let's get rid of that and close our little notification. And now we want to get some documents into there. Bam, there goes the documents. Upwards they go. Excellent. If we wanted to see what any of these things were, in fact I do, because I want to make a change to one, and it's then ultimately going to have some different times and stuff associated with it. So let's go ahead and let's edit this document, the Project 2011 expansion. It's obviously an older document. Click OK. Yes, I know it could harm me. And then we'll just type in, ooh, I can't type. Why can't I type? In fact, where's my whole menuing system? What are we looking at here? This is very confusing. Well, it's not confusing. Remember, we left SharePoint, left Word a little while ago in a mode that had a lot of this stuff hidden. Let's unhide some of that stuff. There we go. And let's enable this document for editing as well. And here we get our usual stuff back. And, Jeff was here. Where wouldn't Jeff be? And now, ooh, look at our save. Save has the little wheels of fortune up there. That means that we are editing an online document. So I'm just going to click Save. And just like in SharePoint 2010, with an Office 2010 experience, we could do multiple editing here. I could share this out with all of you in the world, and we could edit it together. Since I don't know who you are, we're not going to do that. All right, let's close up Word. And let's get rid of this as well. Go away, please. Bye-bye. Excellent. We'll come back to SharePoint. I'm going to refresh this page and take a look at it. You can see that some of this stuff was edited just a few seconds ago, about a minute ago, and all of that's going to be interesting to follow over time. Now I've edited this Project 2011 expansion document as something I'm interested in. Obviously, I think I'm interested in it if I'm going to be editing it. Well, that's one that we want to keep an eye on. So I'm going to follow that document. I'll get a toaster pop up in the right-hand corner that I'm following it. Now I'm following it. But let's look at what that actually means. So that type stuff is consumed over inside of what was the whole My Site social aspect of SharePoint 2010 here in 2013. But in previous versions, let's think about this company that is coming from the whole file folder environment. The only way they know to follow that thing is a sticky note on their desktop. It would be just, this is where it is. More than likely, we're making copies of these documents so that we can save them back and forth and emailing them back and forth. Not a great experience. Well, let's go look at all things about Jeff DeVerter, because, well, who wouldn't enjoy that anyway? So here's the my site. The beginning about that, it's the about me. Now inside of here, let's just take a quick tour. We get a nice fancy picture. I could change my photo right from here if I wanted to. I can see what my news feed is. Think of your news feed just as your wall that you would see inside of Facebook, but kept inside of your corporate internet environment. Or tasks. Tasks are pretty interesting too. Now I can actually start to track the things I'm responsible for in a consolidated location. But if we look here at all things about me, then the news feed that I'm seeing are all the activities that I, Jeff DeVerter, have been involved in. You know, I created some sales stuff. I created these sites that we're looking at. You'll see some older data. You know, I'll admit freely that I went through and did some demoing before and built some stuff out. We're going to go build on that. But if we go look at all things about me and edit my profile, you're going to notice something. You're going to notice that, well, one thing here, look at these are the things I'm interested in. I'm interested in SharePoint, fly fishing, and the brewing of beer. Let's make another one up just because it's fun. How about conducting webinars? Who wouldn't love doing webinars? So I just type that in and then hit a semicolon in space. Let's just watch that for a minute. We'll see that it just sits there happily. But if I click save, ooh, did you notice it got underlined over there? Something happened to that when I click webinars. Well, to show you what happened to it, I'm going to bring up a remote desktop session that brings me into our server. And if we go in and we look at our, in the web application area, I want to look at the service applications. And one that comes to mind specifically is this manage metadata. And we're going to click into manage here. Give you a peek at the service application that runs this. Is if I come through and look at where did I put this stuff? There we go, keywords. So inside of system, there's by default the keywords. And if we expand this, what we're going to find is a lot of keywords that are here. For instance, here's that one that was beer brewing. The way that this got here was not me coming into the system and typing in beer brewing. What happened was I entered it in my profile, just like I entered webinars. And what SharePoint is doing is adding this to its corporate knowledge of terms. Now, just like in the previous version of Managed Metadata, we can work synonym actions from an administrative perspective. There's a lot of things we can do to help make sure we don't have a lot of noise in here, but ultimately we start to build this internal vernacular. Some people call these folksonomies, and that's the ability to tag and manage data that makes sense to the individual information worker themselves. So, so here we can come down and it says, feel free to mention me in your post about SharePoint, fly fishing, beer brewing, or webinars. We're going to see how to do some of that stuff. Because if we look at the my news feed, you'll see that there's all sorts of information in here for us to pay attention to. The first is there are people that I'm following. Yep, just like in the Twitters or the Facebooks, you can follow people. What does that mean? Here's this guy, Martin Thomas. He's the leader of our sales organization. And Martin typed this comment. He says, is anyone interested in fly fishing? Here's that ... And there is lots of information we could see about Martin Thomas as it relates to this, this conversation. And I can mention this stuff in here. I can stop following Martin in here if he gets too chatty and talks about fly fishing too much. You can see that I can even follow multiple people inside of here. SharePoint's working on it. This is me going and finding more people to follow. In fact, there's a guy in this organization, and his name is Bill Goforth. So let's look up old William Goforth. Oh, there he is. I'm going to select his name and click follow. Now I'm following Bill Goforth. He's part of this stuff. These are the different people I'm following. And I can even then click out in here. I can mention him, and I can say, Bill Goforth is the man to know. And look, it's the same kind of things that we're used to seeing at William Goforth. Is a great guy. Who wouldn't like Bill anyway? And I'm posting that. Just putting it on my wall. Now, I mentioned using multiple browsers. Let's go over to, let's get out of Firefox, move over to Internet Explorer. And here's somebody else. This is a guy named Bruce Johnson. This is the persona we're going to talk about right now, or take on for that matter. Now, Bruce has no activities. He's new to this organization, or at least using SharePoint in this way. But we can go to his news feed. We can look at this news feed. And the news feed right now is showing content from everyone in the organization. But wait a minute. Bruce Johnson's new to this. Why does Bruce Johnson have 3 people that he's following by default? Let's look at these 3 people. Well, it's this guy, Martin Thomas, Stacy Rhodes, and Bill Goforth. You see, what SharePoint is doing is it's pre-doing a little math for us. Let's go back and look at this document. Here is Bruce Johnson. He's the VP of Product in this organization. And Martin Thomas is here already, and Bill Goforth is here, and Stacy Rhodes. You see, what SharePoint is doing for Bruce to help him out is helping him follow. We used to call them colleagues. Remember that? But now he's helping him follow the people who are his peers or the people to whom he reports directly to. And that really helps things out. So helping us along. Here's this our CEO, Stacy Rhodes. We can see her reporting structure, just like we could see in the past versions of SharePoint, but that's kind of cool. We could mention Stacy Rhodes. Of course, this is Bill making this statement. Rhodes is a great boss. And so now he's posted that out there. If I were to go over back to Firefox for just a second, then and refresh my activity feed. Where's my activity feed? Here she comes. And look at the news feed from everyone. Then where we can see that Bruce Johnson has just commented about that. And I could, if I disagreed with that, well, that could be the most offensive thing I've ever seen. I could follow Bruce Johnson or even unfollow him if I was there. I can like that. I can reply, and I could say, you know, you are a brown noser. You know, because obviously he is. And since I run this SharePoint farm, I can manage and delete everyone's tasks, so they let me get away with everything. And I can like my own stuff as well. So, you know, as you start to see this whole social aspect that we've all grown accustomed to using the different tools out available on the internet, that now we're starting to see these tools running inside of a SharePoint or in an intranet construct. Well, that's how we deal with individuals, and we have these friendly conversations, whether they be about something that is work-related or not. But let's drive this more back to something that is related specific to getting a job done, getting work done. Well, look at this. One of the other things that I can follow is a document. Let's click into this and take a look at what we see. These are the documents that I'm following. Now, in here you can see here's that Project 2011 extension. So the use case here is we all work inside of organizations with terabytes of data sitting all over the place. Imagine this environment running and helping us manage our content inside of our organization, where amongst those terabytes of data, there are the gigabytes that are part of our department, there are our team's megabytes of data, but ultimately I'd like to think on a day-to-day basis there might be a handful of 20 to 30 documents that I care about across this organization. And now we have the ability in this construct to be able to consolidate not only the documents that I'm following, but I have the ability to follow all kinds of cool stuff. Let's go find something else to follow and see how it surfaces itself back out. Now, I haven't built any navigation to get me home here, so I'm just going to go on back to our Acme Scooters site. Inside of Acme Scooters, let's say that I have a burning interest in all things that have to do with corporate-approved graphics. So let's go down to that graphics site that we created. And I don't care a lot about all the work that they're doing to create new graphics, but I need to consume the existing graphics. So I'm going to go into this document, into the library itself. I'm going to bring up the library navigation, what do you call that, the menu bar at the top there. And we can take and see who it's actually shared with. And we can look at who can follow this stuff. And be able to follow not only a document library, but even individual documents. Now in classic form, I forget where the follow button is. So, oh, I know where it is. All documents. No, it isn't. That's how I look at views. All right, don't worry about it. But if this was the icon I cared about, I can follow that one specifically. Or I can get in and follow this one if that's what I need to be able to get access to. In fact, you know what? This site rocks. I need to follow the site. Let's go up here in the upper right-hand section, follow the entire site. Ooh, I'm already following it. Okay, thanks. All right, let's go back to my site. How do I get there? Just click on me because it's all about me. And here we go. We're back in looking at my activity feed. Let's look at the news feed here. Let's go into the documents that I'm following. And of course, what we're now going to find are those two graphic documents that I was following. Now, how to group some of these things into ways that make sense, I have no idea. I'd like to think if we had 100 things in here, I'd have a way to self-associate some of that stuff or group some of that stuff. But I don't know how to do that. and I don't know if it can be done, and I don't know if it will be allowed to. So also, as I start to follow different documents and items, it's going to start to suggest things to me because SharePoint is all-knowing. It knows what I'm going to want to follow. And these are going to be things that are either going to be created with similar names. It also is analyzing content, and also it is analyzing what my colleagues or those peers of mine are following as well. So that's pretty slick. I like that. All right, let's go back one click. Oh, and by the way, let's point this out. From a document perspective, over here on that left-hand side of the screen, you'll notice these we're looking at right now are the followed documents, and we're getting it. We could also click on My Documents, and these are the documents. If you think about the traditional My Site, where I am going to store my documents in my Site, that's where I am right now. And just like before, it's the same as I have the ability now to create a new document, or I can drag and drop files in here, or we notice these fancy words up here. It says, welcome to your SkyDrive Pro. Many of us have been using SkyDrive for a number of years. It's been provided as a cloud-based file storage environment from Microsoft, but now they have this thing called SkyDrive Pro. Little peek behind the curtain here, SkyDrive Pro is your My Site for your documents, where you can store that information there and you can sync that information. What you get when you install all this stuff in the Office client is the SkyDrive Pro client, and really what that is it's that old Office sync application, and now we can start to sync documents not only here in our SkyDrive Pro, but also from throughout our whole SharePoint experience. So we can sync those things. I'm not going to do it because that's just something I have to clean up on this desktop later. So take my word for it. You trust me, don't you? Thank you. All right, so, and again, we can go up here and we can see everything we need to see in the ribbon. We can do all the usual things. We can get in and look at files. There's lots of new fun stuff in here. There's lots of icons that don't exist yet because we're using SharePoint, the beta version here, first public release. And we can also tag content just like we could before. But let's look how that's been expanded a bit as well. So I am going to make my way back over to our content, our Acme Scooter world, and there we are, Acme Test. Don't you love my fancy terms? Excellent. All right, so let's go find us some documents. Let's go find a real document that we could actually edit. So back down inside of Information Technology, we have our charter, which should be inside of here. Let's go and look at some of this additional things that we can do with this. But if we were to click on that. Sorry, I'm having trouble with it. Again, we can edit it, we can share it, we can follow it. We can see that it's shared with lots of people. Let's see what lots of people is defined as. Me, of course, I created it. Our administrative account, Mr. Thomas, and all domain users, because they should all have rights to view this stuff. And we can invite people from here as well. And again, just like as we added users to sites before, we can add in individual people and see this stuff popping up and adding them. Makes that nice and easy. I do want to get in now quick and show you if we were to, where do I want to go? I'm going to go to see if we've created a sales environment yet. I don't think we have. Back to the internet. We haven't created a sales page, so let's go ahead and create one more site. Site settings. Oh, not site settings, site content. Thank you. Appreciate the help. And we're going to create a sub-site. Add new subsite, and that subsite will be sales, and it will be sales. And we will create. Excellent. Okay, here comes our sales site. And now we want to throw some content into our sales site. I'm not going to brand it because we are getting a little long in the time here. Let's go find our file share. That's not what I'm looking for. Technology, scooters, we're going to sales. Excellent. We see we have a couple of different types of things that exist in here. And just like before, I could just drag and drop and put these right into our site. Up they go, all uploaded and happy. But I want to challenge you and caution you here, because what we're seeing here is a list of our customers, our product and price list, and the sales plan. Sales plan, I would argue, is probably the only document that should have been uploaded, because even though it's much easier now to drag and drop things into SharePoint, it doesn't mean you should drag and drop things into SharePoint. For instance, this customer list or this price list, this should be we should think about this in the context of a list where we can manage this stuff and perhaps even connecting it to external content. We don't have time today to actually do that, but we should probably be managing that in a better fashion than an Excel list here inside of SharePoint. So these sales guys are they're gregarious folks, right? They're very social. They like to chat. In fact, so they want to actually have their own little community where they can talk about all things sales. So they come knocking on IT's door and they want to have a sub-site. So we're going to look at this. In the past, what we would have done is just said, here's a sub-site. Have a great time, and good luck making it work in a way that is functional for our community site. We're going to call it Sales Community, and we'll just SC. And this will be one of the areas where I do want to show you one of the new templates, and that's the community site. And click Create. This community site is structured for people to be able to have conversations in and around a specific topic. So up comes our community site. And it's centric around discussions, but you can see there are tools that we have here. We can see that there are members and replies and discussions that occur here. You can see who the top contributors are. Since it's brand new, it's just me here. So let's add a real quick discussion and get something going here. So who doesn't like sales? And they're crazy. And we could frame it in the context of a question. You can notice where I typed crazy. We have all the usual suspects in our the ribbon at the top from branding this thing and making it look nice and pretty. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to take the time. So look what happens here. Now we can start to see replies and likes and things along those lines. Now we can see that there's one live discussion. Let's go back to Mr. Bruce Johnson and see what he's got going on. And turns out Mr. Bruce Johnson, though he's over product, really is interested in what those guys in sales are doing. So he's going to make his way over to that sales community site, go into the Acme Scooter site. He's going to navigate down into sales. We could do searches and find this stuff, but it's a one-box wonder, and search doesn't behave as nice as I'd like it to on this box. And that would just open up a can of worms that we would have to deal with. So here is that discussion. He's going to like this thing. So he's going to click into this. He is going to like this activity or this discussion and post a reply. Notice I didn't have to click reply, though I could have. Oh, access is denied. That's awesome. I love sales. I love sales. You are crazy. And click reply. Awesome. Look at that. Whole live discussion is going on. Obviously not everything working perfectly. I don't know why I have the ability as Bruce Johnson to reply to this, but not like it. Kind of crazy. I can edit these responses. I can delete my response if I want to. As an ad, I can alert when somebody else is doing things inside of here. I am sure that I am Bruce Johnson right now and not Jeff DeVerter by looking up here in the upper right-hand corner. But we can see that this discussion is thoroughly underway. Let's go back to the Jeff DeVerter persona. Let's look at what is happening around the stats of this site. And you can see that now it has 2 members. We didn't have to invite people into this. As people participate, the number of members go up. We do have ways to manage people coming in. We do have a way to manage, to assign badges to members. I know you're thinking of those lines right now. And actually reputation settings as well. You can see the discussions that are going on, ultimately replies as well. And here are the 2 top contributors. So we can see that directly in the context of this community site, but not everybody knows this community site exists. Remember, back inside of our My Site experience, in our activity feed, news feed, we can see that there's a conversation and people are posting in and around this in the feed here. And so if you are following somebody and that somebody is participating in this community, well then we're going to be able to see that conversation surfaced in the context of our news feed, and if it is of importance or we like it, then participate inside of it. So I think that's pretty powerful, or the ability to be aware of the communication and collaboration that's happening inside of your organization and not having to go directly to that area. One last thing I'll show you before we go see if there are any questions in the question bin. Feel free to type any in. I may or may not know the answer, but I know we can find those answers out. Is the ability to click on sites, and what sites it's going to show me are all of the sites that I'm a member of or am following. So, so these are the sites that I'm following. By the way, I automatically follow sites I create. We could actually go over here and create one as our persona for Bruce Johnson, because he's smart about creating sites, and see it wouldn't show up here, and I could follow it. I can also flag things that I say I really like or star them. If I had the suggestion piece working right now and I had other people creating sites, then those would be showing up right here as well. So this is tip of the iceberg stuff. Guys, there is a lot new in and around SharePoint. I think it is dramatically easier for companies to move into SharePoint, having never used SharePoint before. The search, which you will find several more webinars coming up in the not too distant future in and around the beauties of search and how it impacts the experience. Because as all of this data starts to flood into here, it's really, we're looking to manage metadata, it's intelligence there around dynamically creating keywords, and then search to surface the things that are important and powerful, impactful to us. That doesn't mean that we don't need a good information architecture or taxonomy strategy. It just means that folksonomies and our ability to get to the data that we need becomes easier than it was in previous versions of SharePoint. Microsoft has done a lot to make SharePoint a lot kinder for us to work with on a day-to-day basis when it works, and I look forward to a production version. And so that's great. You can see that the cross-browser experience is very nice. There isn't much that I've found that I've needed to do that I've needed to actually do inside of an Internet Explorer construct. So, break out your Firefoxes and your Chromes and use your browser of choice. Our ability to manage users and rights and share content is a lot easier in SharePoint 2013. All in all, what we find is I think that we're going to see user adoption be a lot easier for everyone as they move into 2013. We will ultimately still hit those walls. That means we need to code a thing. We need to do something custom and unique to meet our specific scenario. But what I like to think that we have found in SharePoint 2013 is an environment that allows us to do a lot more out of the box than we could do in previous versions. All right, so I'm going to click here. Okay, let's see if there's any questions here. Oh, I mentioned that there was a webinar that happened earlier. Randy's webinar is actually this afternoon. I would recommend at 2 p.m. Central you tune in to Randy Driscoll, is going to show us the goodness of branding. We do have a blog out there that talks about all the webinars that we have. I don't know if you can read this or not, but if you go to rackspace.com/blog, you will find all the 2013 week of webinar information. And see that we do actually have one more question. If you share a document by putting a person's name directly, is this similar to giving individual access to permission? Yes, it is. If you're sharing it with them, you are not only sending them the link, you are granting them permission at the same time. So that's kind of sweet.